righty then. Welcome everyone. Dr. Venus here. Today we are going in on white supremacy, Black masculinity, and domestic violence. This is a very real conversation, and it's a tender one. All right, it's a tender one. So I'm going to be real mindful and soft with it. Okay, so I'm going to go slow today. I'm not going to breathe. I'm not going to go quickly. I went full professor. I got me some notes, and I want to make sure you're completely taken care of in the conversation because we have some people who literally have, gone through some things. Okay, so I want to respect and honor everyone. For those of you who have gone through domestic violence, for those of you who have been on the receiving end or the giving end, and that goes for men and women, that goes for all races, all people worldwide. All right. So I just want to get a couple of pieces in just to take care of you so you can hear the conversation and do your very best to not react. Okay. It's a hot button for a lot of people. And I knew it when I took it on. Okay. And is worthy given our time, given where we are in this historical moment. Okay. So let me begin with really acknowledging and appreciating each and every survivor of domestic violence from all races, all genders, all locations. Okay. I bear witness. I bear witness to what it takes to put yourself back together when you've been knocked down like that. I bear witness. I honor you. I respect you. I appreciate you. I see you. I feel you. I bear witness. Okay. So let me just start our whole conversation inside of a deep love, respect, and honoring for everybody who has ever been hit, slapped, beat, stomped, choked, and it happens to men too. So this is not a precious conversation, okay? So I want to make sure I speak that so you don't have to go through all of the mental anguish of, well, what about me and what about this? This is not, we're not, the reason I'm taking the time to set the context is we're not going to have that conversation. We're not debating who's right and who's wrong. That's not even our thing. That's not what we're doing here. This is not about right or wrong. This is about source and how to empower you in the midst of a pandemic while we're fighting for our lives with the police. Okay. So my prayer is that you can receive that and you can hear that, and you're in a place of knowing that you're loved, that you're safe, that this is not an attack. This is not this dismissal of your lived experience. It's not that. Okay. So please partner with me. Okay. Partner with me in having a committed conversation that is really designed to empower you and to empower the men in your life and the women in your life. Okay. So my prayer is that lands and that gives you some cushion. Okay. I want to start this conversation. I'm going to be here for a while. I'm going to take this one slow. Okay. This is going to be a little longer than my other shows, my other episodes. I will encourage you, as I always do, please share, tag, post, subscribe to the Hot Mess Millionaire podcast so you can listen and re-listen with no distraction. Okay. And really push this out. I have a series of resources. I'm going to say up front now so that you know what they are. Okay. And then I'll get into the teaching. All right. And if you look at the notes, you'll see them. Okay. So as I always start off with, we have some action items. Register to vote. I know you hear me say this every time, and I'm going to keep saying it until we get get 45 gone. Okay. And if you know someone who has gone to jail and they don't know if they can vote, please have them go check it out. Those two resources at the top of the bottom of my notes here. Okay. Then I went and I also created, I didn't want to re-trigger you, and we'll get into that in a minute. I didn't want to re-trigger anybody. So I only took one historical source, and it's called 8 Most Horrific and Inhumane Black Slave Punishment in the History of Slavery. And it's important because when we start tying domestic violence with white supremacy, we cannot ignore slavery. We can't do it. So it has to be included. So I only did one source of that. That's all you need. And it's pretty comprehensive, but it's not, it's digestible. Okay. Then I have 3 resources just for statistics, just in case you don't know what's going on. Not everybody knows about domestic violence. Some people never, bless their heart, never dealt with it. Okay. So they don't understand how insidious it can be. All right. So the first one is statistics, National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. It just gives you a rundown of domestic violence across the board, races all over the place, right? So you can get a sense of it. Then the second one is domestic violence in the Black community, which is our topic. Again, I'm not suggesting there isn't domestic violence in every community. I'm very clear there is. I am dealing with one particular piece that ties directly to this historical moment we're dealing with in terms of white supremacy, police murders, Black men and Black women bodies. Okay. It's a very specific conversation. Please don't try to turn it into other things. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Let me get that there. Okay. All right. So, and then I have the third statistic, and this is important. Everybody should know this, just because if you know somebody that you love who may not be well, you want to be able to talk about domestic violence with stats. Like 1 out of every 3 Black women are hit. Okay, but I'm not going to get into it. I want you to be able to read it for yourself. Don't take my word. Fact check me. Okay, 30 shocking domestic violence statistics that remind us it's an epidemic. These are things I purposely included stats so you can't be. I don't want you to have to fight with people about craziness. Stats and facts help people understand that this is not an emotional tirade. This is an epidemic that we have in our country. Okay. And then I had a section just for support. There's the National Domestic Hotline. That's www.thehotline.org. And you can actually you can call for free, whatever. And you don't ever have to say domestic violence because some people can't speak freely in their home. They have a whole system in place around coded language. Then there's Safe Horizon. This is a location that helps you get shelter. No, this is another hotline. Okay, healthy place is for sheltering. They help you get shelter wherever you're located. Okay, and so there are many more, but I only wanted to give you enough to get started. I didn't want you to be overwhelmed. And for some people, this is a new topic. For some of us, it's not. But I want to give you something. There's plenty of more. I'm not suggesting these are the best. I'm saying this is just to have you have something that's been vetted that you know you can trust to, if nothing else, call if you need to, or give the number to somebody you know so that they have some way out, some way to take care of themselves. Okay. And then the last resource I put in this particular episode is actually an article. It was written January 2019, Huffington Post. No, Slate News, sorry. It's called "The Trump Administration Quietly Changed the Definition of Domestic Violence, and we have no idea what for." And what they've done in this particular, with this particular law is they've turned domestic violence into a felony, meaning all the mental anguish, the stalking, the intimidation, they took that out. They took all that out. And I don't know if they put it back in because it's been a year and some change, but it's important for you to read it because even if you have never experienced domestic violence, you want to hear how the language can be positioned so that if someone is being harassed or hurt by their intimate partner, this law makes it not a big deal. And this is specifically for my women of all races. Hear me when I tell you this. This particular law leaves women, white women, Asian women, Black women, Latino women, Indian women, completely at the mercy of men. It is a deep thing to see. Read it and know it. So you'll understand that you're going to have, if something happens, you're going to have to advocate for yourself because they changed the laws. If someone is berating you, they took that out. They don't think that's domestic violence. That's what the law is saying. And so my point is, with white supremacy, this is more of it. And white supremacy impacts white women too, y'all. Do you understand? If women are not considered, they're not 3/5 of a man either. You know what I mean? So, so it's we're all in this. Okay. So those are the resources, and I wanted to take my time and do those this at the beginning so that you can share them, you can use them, you can get educated because you may meet somebody who is going through it, and you could be a help to them. Okay. That takes care of that. And again, like I said, please make sure you subscribe, download, share. This is an important conversation. Please partner with me in making sure it reaches the world. Okay. Okay. So everybody take a deep breath in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Deep breath in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. One more time. Deep breath in your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Okay. So let's just get up in this. Let me tell you what I am talking about when I talk about white supremacy, Black masculinity, and domestic violence. I am not talking about any individual person, okay? But I can point to some. So recently in the news, Bashir Gray was arrested and accused of domestic violence, all right? But I'm not talking about Bashir. I'm talking about the timing, okay? I'm talking about the economic status, economic level of someone of Mr. Gray's stature, all right? And I'm also linking it to other Black men. I'm thinking about Chris Brown and Rihanna. I'm thinking about Miles Davis and Cicely Tyson. I'm thinking about Ike and Tina Turner, just to name a few. So I'm not talking about one person. I am talking about a particular behavior that gets triggered with a Black man, with the woman he loves, that turns him into something else. Okay. And so let me say what I'm not talking about, so y'all don't have to post this or say this or fight me on this. I am not talking about blame. I'm not even talking about who's right or who's wrong. I'm not even in that conversation. I really am not. I am not talking about how can you say? I'm not talking about who's wrong and who's right. I'm not in that conversation. I'm not talking about airing out dirty laundry. I'm not in that conversation either. I am in a historical conversation, and I need you to get into my conversation to hear what I'm saying to you. Because if you can get into my conversation, you'll get some peace, you'll get some freedom, and you'll get some power. But I can't get in the conversation if you're going to argue about, well, he shouldn't have done that and she brought it on herself, and we're not in that. That's not this. We have too much at stake in this historical moment to fight over stuff that's not worth fighting for. Okay. So I need you to be clear. I am talking about a historical wound. Okay. And you have to get yourself oriented around knowing that I'm talking about a historical wound. Okay. And so with that being said, let me just go into the teaching. I think I've done enough prep. Okay. I think I've done enough prep. Help me, God, help me enter. Okay. And let me start off with just a conceptual statement. Okay. When a Black woman contests a Black man, intentionally or accidentally, okay, and we'll talk about the historical wound a little bit in a moment. The historical wound of being disrespected gets triggered in a Black man, okay? And just like Massa, a nigga needs to be put back in her place. Only this time, it's the woman he loves. It's the reenactment of white supremacy through gender roles. That is what I'm talking about. So let me make it plain to you. I would need every person within the sound of my voice to think of a Black man that you love and who loves you. I'm not suggesting he's done anything bad or good. Just find one of your own imagining. It could be a brother, it could be an uncle, it could be a cousin, it could be a son, but and he has to be someone who's bigger than you. Okay. But I want you to imagine for one moment that there's a Black man that you love and who loves you. And there's really sincerely love that's present. It's not crap. It's not crap. It's real love, right? And I would like for you to take the case that historically, you and I already know that Black men or Black masculinity within the plantation household was rendered empty by virtue of the slave master. So let's go there. So hold on to your Black man in your mind, okay? And let's just go back to the plantation household. All right. So there's a historical dynamic inside of that structure. All right. And I'm not going to do all four pieces, but I'm going to talk to you about the main one I want to talk about today. So there's the slave master, there's the mistress, there's the slave, and then there's the maid. The maid was a Black woman, the slave was the Black man, the mistress was a white woman, and the slave master was the white man. Okay. Now there were more slaves on the plantation than there were master and slave. So that created a level of violence to keep them in place, because the whole fear was there would be an uprising and kill the white slave owners. Okay. Now keep in mind that the institution of North American chattel slavery was rooted in survival, literally rooted in, if winter comes and this does not happen, we all die. If we don't do certain things, if we don't have certain food, if we don't have certain shelter, we're going to die. That's white people in district service died a lot. Native American people died a lot. Okay. There was a lot of death going on back in the day. No justification, just information so you understand the context. When I was on the streets, the biggest challenge for me was the weather. You know what I'm saying? Because it was cold. If you're in Baltimore in the winter and it's cold and you're outside, that is not a good thing. The survival that I would do things to get from being outside because it was so cold. So I want you to imagine that the plantation household, that whole dynamic was rooted in survival. Okay. Everybody was in survival. Everybody. That's not a justification. That is information. You need to know the difference. So white masculinity, white supremacy is built into the Bible, is built into the law, that they have the right to ownership. Okay. And as such, they own their wives, they own their children, and they own their slaves. White men could beat their wives, their white wives, after they took their dowry to death. That is factual. Check up on it. The first slaves in North America were white women. I'm not kidding you. Okay. And so when Black men watched and saw how white supremacy, AKA white men, did power, it was all rooted in force. I hope you caught that. God, please help me. I pray that landed. Okay. I don't know if it did or not, but I want you to be clear that power got affiliated with force in North American chattel slavery. Okay. So just like a child, and I'm not talking about Black men being children, I'm saying that we learn by what we see. Okay, we make sense of stuff based on what we can make sense of, right? So if you can take that, if you can walk with me on that, Black men did not have the respect of white supremacy. They were 3/5 of a man. They were treated like women in the gendered role, right? And if you wanted to be a man, what manhood looked like was violence, oppression, domination, and punitive consequence. Okay. And the reward for all that negativity is you get a big house. You get people who do what you say, who obey you. You get to have the best, the best of everything first. And everybody else gets to fight over the leftovers, including your wife, right? Or your significant other. So that was the model that Black masculinity was born inside of in North America. All right. So let's take on emancipation. Let's take on Reconstruction. We get free. And Black men are now voting all the 3/5 of a man. They're positioned as the head of the household, or they're positioned as how can I say this softly? God help me say it soft. If you've ever been in a violent situation, the challenge with violence is that the way that people understand power is through violence. So if you've been part of a gang, or if you've been out there, you know that there's someone who's a leader, and everybody who's not a leader looks to the leader and tries to be like that leader. Now, once that leader's gone, they emulate what that leader did. You see what I'm saying? They actually do the same stuff the leader did. If you were part of a gang, then they did the same kind of initiation that they learned from the previous leader. Okay, so these learned behaviors start to deal with this whole notion of self. Okay, and so Black men, their sense of self, which is located outside of them because of the valuation system of Blackness, all right, the commodification of I'm only useful for what I can do, right? Their ideology, their way of seeing masculinity is rooted in white supremacy. It's rooted in violence. It's rooted in obedience. It's rooted in the acquisition of things. It's rooted in white supremacy. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you take that basis, let me put one piece in there. It's also rooted in punitive consequence or beatings. Okay, and I'm gonna talk to you about beatings in one moment. I got to get this piece in. Okay, it's rooted in beatings, violence, and acquiescence. All right, so the behavior is part and part. It was rooted in survival, and masculinity got built inside of that paradigm. Okay, it got built inside of that paradigm. And because it got built inside of that paradigm, white supremacy and Black masculinity are one. I hope that landed. I can't tell if it landed or not. I'm praying to God it landed. I'm hopeful. Okay, I'm hopeful. And so, what I'm pointing to is this. And I want you to look at this with me. Let's go to the term respect. Okay. Now, where I come from, back in the day, Black men, when I was coming through, Black men had a real high value on tennis shoes. Air Jordans was it. Okay. It was the thing, right? It was. All right. And so there was a whole season where Black men were getting shot for stepping on other Black men's shoes, but it wasn't the shoe they were stepping on. This is what you need to understand about identity. Black men didn't shoot other Black men for the tennis shoe. They shot the other Black men because they were disrespected, because their sense of self is located outside of them. It's located in their ability to provide, their ability to acquire, their ability to protect. You know, it's you see what I'm saying? It's not Black women. Our sense of self is internally valued. It's over here with voice. Theirs is out there with respect. Okay, so you got two different survival strategies that have gone through generations that are still part of us. All right. And so when we talk about respect, so slavery is the condition in which one human being was owned by another. A slave was considered by law property or chattel and was deprived of most of the rights ordinarily held by free persons. So if a Black man is a slave, then a Black woman is a slave times two, because she's now slave to white supremacy, and she's now enslaved to Black masculinity. Did y'all catch that? I'm not suggesting it's bad, but I want you to know it was rooted in white supremacy. I'm not saying Black masculinity is negative. I'm saying it was built inside of survival strategy. Okay. So when we talk about, I'll get to the beating in a minute, but let me get this other piece in. Let me get respect in. So the way that I'm talking about respect, I want to read this definition of respect to you so you can hear it. Esteemed for or a sense of the worth or excellence of a person, a personal quality or ability, or something considered as a manifestation of personal quality or ability, a deference to a right, privilege, a privileged position, or someone or something considered to have certain rights. Okay. let me see if there's any certain rights of privileges. So if we take on, I want y'all to hear this. So respect, I want y'all to hear this in terms of historical wounds. Respect for when Black men say, I feel disrespected, I would like for you to consider something pretty bloody radical. I don't think the respect they're talking about is the one we think. I think that when we hear you're disrespecting me from a Black man, whether it's your father, your uncle, your son, your lover, your boo, whomever, when you hear them say, oh, you're disrespecting me, I don't, like some version of that, I think that what we hear is some version of talking down or tone or word choice. I think that's what we hear, okay? Because we're listening from being heard. We're listening from our wound of not being heard. So we're listening from, well, I'm not disrespecting you, blah, blah, blah. But if we take respect to actually mean deference, okay? Do you understand? Or a privileged position, like because they should be higher above us, okay? But the problem with the way that respect is done historically is that it's rooted in white supremacy. So with white supremacy, respect equaled obedience. Do you understand how far that goes? Respect meant obedience. It meant I have every right to do whatever I want to your body, whenever I want, because I own you. Do y'all hear that? Okay, that's different. That's different than, oh, my tone. No, it's deeper. It is a sense of self that is being attacked. Like, oh, I am nothing if you don't obey me. But that's white supremacy on steroids. Okay. And so once you get respect, once you start to relate to respect from a different place, once you get the respect, I love my tribe. So once if you can expand your notion of respect from tone or word choice or attitude, that's not the respect that triggers a beatdown. You see what I'm saying? The respect that triggers a beatdown, I'll get to triggers in a moment, is that of someone who doesn't defer to that person, who's not being obedient, who is disappearing any kind of stature for that Black masculinity. Okay, okay. I'm just making sure you caught it. All right. So if you got respect down, now we got to go to the assumption of love. Okay. Now here's the thing that I'm gonna tell you. This is the thing that drives me mad. Right. Black masculinity couldn't fight back against white supremacy. Right. So Black masculinity fought. I want to say that's wrong, God. When Black masculinity got triggered or has been triggered or gets triggered, when it's completely unexamined, so this is unexamined Blackness, okay? They take it out on the people that love them the most, which is their significant other. Does it make sense? Now, here's the thing that makes it, this frustrates me and breaks my heart and makes me want to like eat nails, is that there is an assumption in love that love is patient, love is kind, love is forgiving. It forgives all things, it takes all things, it tolerates all things. So when Black masculinity gets triggered, or let's say a Black woman falls over a tripwire, I'll get up to that in a moment, okay? There's an assumption that she'll be forgiven, that he'll be forgiven by her because she loves him. Do y'all catch that? So when I was out there on the streets and Nana took me in, I said very, very bad things because I was trying to make her be like everybody else, right? I was trying to make her prove that I wasn't worth anything in very simple terms. And so I would say things and do things to provoke her, to make her do bad things. Now, Nana never took the bait. Just so y'all know, she's clean. I was messy. She's clean. All right. But because she was a safe space, I said stuff that I would never say to a stranger because I knew that on some level she loved me and she would forgive me. It's amazing. I don't know if you can check out on your own life how, you know, when you feel safe, you say stuff that you don't say when you don't feel safe. The same thing happens inside of anger, right? When you feel safe enough, you do stuff that you wouldn't do in any other circumstance. So there's an assumption, love's assumption, that there's a safety net of love's forgiveness. And that is something that white supremacy counts on through Black masculinity, that it be forgiven. Okay. As a historical moment. All right. So I think, so I think I want to get all these pieces in. All right. We got respect. We got um respect. We got love's assumption, the safety net of forgiveness. Okay, we have the historical wound around respect, no value, no privilege, no regard, like worthless with no worth. All right. And then we have this whole notion of external valuation or obedience when a Black woman speaks up. Check this out. When a Black woman speaks up, it lands like she's talking down, and it occurs as a challenge to Black masculinity rooted in white supremacy. Do you catch that? It's like if you say, I can't even tell you this. I'm gonna tell you, I have some men, and I love my men. I love all my men. They're great guys. As human beings, they're great. But when this thing gets triggered, they lose their minds. Okay. And I'm not even talking about romantic partners. I am talking about vendors, friends, colleagues, peers. When this gets triggered, they're gone. All right. I had this one guy who was great marketing. I mean, a savage at marketing. He introduced me to this other Black guy, and they must have had words I didn't know about, and it was nothing romantic. Hear me when I tell you, none of that was going on. Me and this other guy that he introduced me to, we had dinner. We were talking about business. The first guy, who was the marketer, was upset that I had dinner with him, and I said, "This is you introduced me to him. This is what I said. Okay, this is how crazy it went." It was a text. I said, "This is someone you introduced me to. You suggested I talk to them about business management. It's going to be fine. We'll figure it out together. It's no big deal." Do you know that he literally ended our 6-month contract in 6 weeks? Walked away with $25,000 of my money and went ghost, and said, because I did not do what he said. I'm a grown ass woman, y'all. Okay. But I want you to be clear. That's called a trigger. So it doesn't even have to be romantic, but that trigger of disobedience is rooted in terms of an external valuation. He only knows himself as powerful if I'm obedient. That screams of massa. Okay. And so when these triggers happen and these tripwires happen, then there's punitive consequence. Black men leave, they verbally attack, they defame your character, they demonize you, they separate families, withhold your children from you, and ultimately they annihilate. And that could be emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever, when that tripwire happens. Okay. And also proximity. They take out anger on the person closest to them. They couldn't beat master, so they beat you. You see what I'm saying? All right. And also, Black women are at the if we look at social standing from white supremacy to Blackness, Black women are at the bottom of the pole. You see what I'm saying? So now a Black man has something to, he's the overseer, right? He's over her, and that's the social position. Okay. And if you think about Malcolm X quote, the most disrespected person on the planet or in America is a Black woman. He's talking about social positioning. Okay. And so you get all of these pieces together. You get the lack of respect, the assumption of forgiveness, the lack of obedience. They act it out. First they leave, or they talk back to you, or they gossip. All of these add up, and then they start taking their anger out on the person that's closest to them. And it's normally a Black woman in this particular context. And what gets reenacted, this is the rub, okay? What gets reenacted is how can I say this, God? Help me. What gets reenacted is white supremacy through gender roles. Okay? And that is the thing I want you to get, is that the way that Black men beat, and I'll get into that in a moment, the way that Black men beat Black women when they get triggered. If you think about, what's that guy, Rick Rice, who was the football player? Oh my God. There was a video of him literally stomping her in the elevator. It wasn't just, now for those of you who haven't ever been hit, you won't breathe through it with me. But for those of us who've been hit, okay, there's a difference between being slapped, being punched, being kicked, being choked, being strangled. Those are different distinctions. I'm not suggesting they're good. I'm just telling you they're different distinctions. A beating is not the same as a slap. So let me show you what I mean. So when something is beat, is hit, pound, strike, thrash, referring to giving of a blow or blows. Beat implies the giving of repeated blows. To hit is usually to give a single blow, definitely directed. To pound is to give a heavy and to give heavy and repeated blows, often with the fist. Okay. To strike is to give one or more forceful blows suddenly or swiftly. Okay, that's what a strike is. To thrash implies inflicting repeated blows as punishment. That is important to show superior strength. Thrashing. Okay, so when you see a black man beating a black woman, when you see the videos of it, I'm talking about unrestrained beating. It's like Chris Brown and Rihanna kind of beating. Do you see what I'm saying? That's not measured. That is full on beat down. Okay. And the reason it's a beat down is because of two things. There is a tripwire it's almost like walking through an emotional landmine. We don't even know. We don't even know what the tripwires are. And I don't think they do until they get tripped. Okay. Now, a tripwire is a wire used to set off concealed explosives as one stretches across a footpath to strike and activate by the foot of an enemy soldier. Okay. And a trigger, check this out. A trigger is a small projecting tongue in a firearm. When pressed by the finger, actuates the mechanism that discharges the weapon, or a device as a lever, the pulling or pressing of which releases a detonant or spring. Anything as an act or event that serves as stimulus and initiates or participates a reaction or a series of reactions. So when I'm thinking, what I want you to get is you add in these pieces. You're dealing with a tripwire and a trigger that creates the reenactment of a beatdown that is a historical wound from slavery. A simple way of saying this is this. White people beat us, okay? That didn't leave us. It has become part of our community. We like to divorce the action from the source. The source that we were born in North America is violence, okay? That's not justification. That is source, that is information. It's just what it is, all right? It's not even, I ain't even tripping. I'm just saying, if you look at it like this one incident, like this person, you're ignoring the conditions. And I'm not even talking about sociology like money and economics. I'm not even dealing with that. I'll let them deal with that. I'm dealing with the historical wound, the survival strategy that gets triggered in Black men where they beat a Black woman like Massa beat us. That is what I'm out to have you hear. That is what I would like for you to hear. That doesn't justify anything. I'm not even worried about justification. What I want you to understand is how insidious white supremacy is in the actual culture of Blackness. And we ignore that. We say like, oh, this individual did this, that, and other. I'm like, hold on a second. I done had my ass whipped a couple of times, a bunch of times by different men and women. Rest assured. Ass whipping happens, ass whippings for everybody, right? It didn't, but this is the thing. My mama beat me, but her mama beat her. You see what I'm saying? And her mama beat her and her daddy beat her. You see what I'm saying? Like, don't ignore the source. That doesn't, be clear, I'm not saying anything good about any of this, but I am saying that in heightened time periods like now, when solidarity is what will make the difference, the pressure, not even the pressure, that's wrong because I don't want to take it the wrong way. The opportunity for white supremacy to show up in Black culture, in our behavior, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. And if you don't relate to it like white supremacy, you're going to turn it into an individual act. And I'm like, hold on. There's more. You know what I'm saying? There's more. And until we start to contend with the power of white supremacy and how we relate to each other, we will live at the effect of that survival strategy. And we have for generations. The same thing happened in the Black arts movement. When we were doing Black arts, late 60s, early 70s, Black men were beating the bejesus out of Black women because they were men and they needed to be respected. And it was, hold on, Ntozake Shange writes about it best, in my opinion. I think she writes about it best. And it's been that way every historical moment when the press comes in, when it gets hot, when it gets tense, when it gets elevated, domestic violence goes up. And I find it interesting, and this is my salient point, and then I'll stop. I find it fascinating that right in the historical moment, right when we need each other the most, when Black men who are loved by Black women, when we need each other the most, that is when they beat us. That is when we break apart. That is when the bond of love is no longer big enough to handle the politics and the weight of change. That is the thing that's bothering me. Not even bother, that's what throws me. It's like, wow, you want to do this now? How about we just handle some stuff with police killing us and lynching us? How about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, can we focus? And the truth of it is that it's a divisive tactic. And it's been with us since we got here. It's the same thing with the separating the Black family. It's a divisive tactic. It's all white supremacy dressed as masculinity, in my opinion, and individuality. And then it has us fighting each other, has infighting. And if we're infighting, we're not fighting them. We're not handling them. We're not getting new laws in with them because we're dealing with this. And that is the problem, in my opinion, is that we're fighting each other when we need to be focusing on standing for ourselves. And but I would love for you, don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Don't listen to me. Don't believe me. Go look it up. Read it for yourself. Get your own revelations. Okay. But it's the timing of it that's throwing me. It's like, okay, God, right now, this is where we need to be united. And this is where the triggers happen. This is where the tripwires happen for him. This is what he's doing now, today, while we're doing this. Oh, okay, God, that's the same thing that happened in the 60s. Oh, okay, God, that's what happened in the Depression. Oh, okay, God, that's what happened in Reconstruction. Oh, all right. Okay, that's what happened right after emancipation. Okay, God, I get it now. That this is another divisive tactic that's in bed that we've taken on. And we don't even know that it's rooted, that is this that is all set up for us to not be unified. Okay? Because that is the nature of white supremacy. Okay? So I'm falling back. I'm falling back. I'm falling back. I'm falling back. I'm stepping away from the mic. I'm stepping away from the mic. I'm stepping away from the mic. Deep breath in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Deep breath in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. One more time. Deep breath in through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Okay. All right, God. So there you go. That's what I wanted to share today. Okay. I'm not offering any answers or solutions, but I will say this. If you are in a situation where you're dealing with domestic violence, please get help. Just because I can help you understand where it comes from doesn't mean you have to stay. I didn't stay. I had to get out. Okay. And it took me years to get out. Okay. And what I'm excited about is that women across the board, but specifically Black women, we've grown enough where we're taking on ourselves and really becoming real mindful of who we let in our life and who we let near us. And this is an undertaking, right? Because socially speaking, we've been positioned to take what we can get, right? And what's nice is when you have your own money, it sounds crazy to say this, but when you have your own money, you have your own options. It's a big deal. When you don't have to depend on a man or a woman, for same-sex marriages or relationships, whoever's the masculine role, if you have your own money, you have your own freedom. It's a big deal. So we're at a place historically where more Black women are starting businesses on their own. And I will say this, when you're involved with a Black man who is willing to do the internal excavation, to do his own anti-racism work, his own anti-white supremacy work on himself. That is a blessing from God. That is because they haven't always had the opportunity set to be self-reflective regarding how they are, how white supremacy is shaping their emotional life. Most people don't even think that they have historical wounds, let alone the ones that get played out when people get triggered or the tripwires. Okay. And I'll say one more last thing, and then I'm going to give the mic up. I would like for you to think in your own real life where you saw yourself lose it and you couldn't stop yourself. It was like, it could have been with your kid. It could have been as a professor, it could have been with a student. It could have been anything. And you could see yourself saying things, doing things, acting things out, and you couldn't stop it. That meant there was a tripwire somewhere and you got triggered. You got hijacked. Okay. So I want you to be clear. Tripwires and triggers are not a choice. Okay. And if you don't know that, you're going to drive yourself crazy, because as a human being, we have triggers and tripwires. I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying if you don't know they're there, you're going to keep trying to make sense out of chaos. And there's when a person's triggered, they're not there. You're just the opportunity from the past. You don't count in that moment. You're not there. Okay. So I want to make sure you know that, so you have some way to hold it, so it doesn't occur to you as a personal attack, even if you are being attacked. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying a trigger is a trigger. And I have yet to meet a human being who doesn't have one or two or a bunch of them. Okay. So please keep that in mind for yourself. So if you happen to lose your temper with your kid, you may want to notice, okay, what's my tripwire? What's my trigger? Okay, what can I do to dismantle that trigger? Does it mean I need to call somebody, take a walk, what have you? But I say that the more aware you are of your own triggers, the more facility you have with other people's. So you can either choose to deal with them or not. Because in the end, your option is deal with them or not. Okay, until they take themselves on, it's just like an addict. There's nothing to do. You can't change them at all. Okay, you can't. But you can. Here's what I believe. I think that if you love somebody, you leave them, let them sort it out, and let them generate themselves. If they're committed, they'll figure it out. If not, then you're safe. But it's not about them. It's about you not being in or staying in a situation that hurts you. Okay. And I trust you to take care of you. I trust you to take care of yourself. All right. All right, beloveds. This is Dr. Venus, your hot mess millionaire. Thank you very much for sitting with me in this conversation. I know it's thick, but it's worthy. And if you were fed by this word, please pay it forward. Please share it. I'm on this white supremacy thing, and I don't know if I'm going to do another one. If y'all let me know, because I was thinking about doing. I won't tell you that because this is going to take people different places, right? But I appreciate you for listening to my word, and I want you to know that you're loved, you're precious. I thank God for you. You're doing great. This is not an easy conversation to have, and for all our men who hung in there, thank you for staying in and hearing my perspective. You don't have to take it on. It's fine. It's a historical one. And prayerfully, it'll give you some language and some tools to start looking at it from a different perspective. Okay. That's all I have for now. Know that you love all measure, my sweet sister in success, the brothers who love us, and our allies. I've been checking up on it. There's some white allies that are pushing my word out real strong. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. So I'm saying that, everyone's welcomed here, and my prayer is that you're fed. So thank you for allowing me to feed you. And until the next time, know that you're loved. Goodbye for now.